So we're on part 2 of Little Women by Louisa May. Be greatly appreciated if you stop them from poking me in my home before I have to tell them about it. Because they're not welcome. Chapter 24. Girls, Gossip. In order that we may start afresh and go to Meg's wedding with free minds, it will be well to begin with a little gossip about the marches. And here, let me premise that if any of the elders think there is too much lovering in the story, as I fear they may, I'm not afraid of young folks would make that objection. I can only say that Mrs. March, what can you expect when I have 4 gay girls in the house and a dashing young neighbor over this way? The 3 years that have passed have brought but few changes to the quiet family. The war is over, and Mr. March safely at home, busy with his books and the small parish which found him in a minister by nature as by grace. A quiet, studious man, rich in the wisdom that is better than learning, the charity which calls all mankind brother, the piety that blossoms in a character make it august and lovely. These attributes, in spite of poverty and the strict integrity which shuts him out from the more worldly successes, attracted to him many admirable persons. As naturally as sweet herbs draw bees, and as naturally he gave them the honey into which 50 years of hard experience had distilled no bitter drop. Earnest young men found the gray-headed scholar as young at heart as they. Thoughtful and troubled women instinctively brought their doubts to him, sure of finding the gentlest sympathy, the wisest counsel.
Enemies are dropping into the area. Watch the side.
Sinners told their sins to be pure-hearted. Old men were both rebuked and saved. Gifted men found a companion. Ambitious men caught glimpses of nobler ambitions than their own. And even worldlings confessed that his beliefs were beautiful and true, although they wouldn't pay. To outsiders, a few energetic women seemed to rule the house, and so they did in many things. But the quiet scholar sitting among his books was still the head of the family, the household conscience, anchor, and of the family the household conscience, anchor, and comforter. For him, the busy, anxious woman always turned in troublesome times, finding him in the truest sense of those sacred words, husband and father. The girls gave their hearts into their mother's keeping, their souls into their father's, and to both parents who lived and labored so faithfully for them. They gave a love that grew that's their growth, and bound them tenderly together by the sweetest tie which blessed life and outward death. Mrs. March is as brisk and cheery, though rather grayer than when we saw her last, and just now so absorbed in Meg's affairs that their hospitals and homes, still full of wounded boys and soldiers' widows, decidedly miss the motherly missionaries' visits. I cannot see you. What you're doing is a crime. John Brooke did his duty manfully for a year, got wounded, was sent home, and not allowed to return. He received no stars or bars, but he deserved them, for he cheerfully risked all he had in life and love, are very precious when both are in full bloom. Perfectly resigned to his discharge, he devoted himself to getting well, preparing for business and earning a home for Meg. With the good sense and sturdy independence that characterized him, he refused Mr. Lawrence's most generous offers, and accepted the place of bookkeeper, feeling better satisfied to begin an honestly earned salary than by running any risk with borrowed money. Meg had spent the time in working as well as waiting, growing womanly in character, wise in housewifely arts, and prettier than ever, for love is a greater beautifier. She had her girlish ambitions and hopes, and felt some disappointment as that humble ways in which the new life must begin. Ned Moffat had just married Sally Gardner, and Meg couldn't help contrasting their fine house and carriage. Many gifts and splendid outlift with her own, and secretly wishing she would have the same. But somehow envy and discontent. Dude, you're delusional. This is sad. But somehow, the fact that you think that it's okay. But somehow envy and discontent soon vanished when she thought of all the patient love and labor John had put into the little home awaiting her. God damn. And when they sat together in the twilight talking of their small plans, the future always grew so beautiful and bright that she forgot Sally's splendor, that felt herself the richest, happiest girl in Christendom. The way you do it is bad. It's good for you. Joe never went back to Aunt March, for the old lady took such a fancy to Amy that she bribed her with the offer of drawing lessons for one of the best teachers going, and for the sake of this advantage, Amy would have served a far harder mistress. So she gave her mornings to duty, her afternoons to pleasure, and proposed finally. Jo meantime devoted herself to literature, and Beth, who remained delicate long after the fever as a thing of the past, not an invalid, exactly, but never again the rosy, healthy creature she had been, yet always hopeful, happy, and serene, and busy with the quiet duties she loved. Everyone's friend and an angel in the house long before those who loved her most and learned to know it. As long as the spread eagle paid her $1 a column for her rubbish, as she called it, Jo felt herself a woman of means and spun her little romances diligently. But great plans fermented in her busy brain and ambitious mind, and the old tin kitchen in the garret held a slowly increasing pile of blotted manuscript, which was one day to place the name of March upon the roll of fame. Laurie, having dutifully gone to college to please his grandfather, was now getting through it in the easiest possible manner to please him. A universal favorite, thanks to money, manners, much talent, and the kindest hearts that ever got his owner into scrapes by trying to get the people out of them. He stood in great danger of being spoiled, and probably would have been like many other anointed, promising boy, if he had not possessed a talisman against evil in the memory of the kind old man who was bound up in his success, the motherly friend who watched over him as he were her son, and last but not least, but any means, the knowledge that 4 innocent girls loved, admired, and believed in him with all their hearts. Being only a glorious human boy, of course he frolicked and flirted, grew dandified, aquatic, sentimental, or gymnastic as college fashions ordained, hazed and was hazed, talked slang, and more than once came perilously near suspension and expulsion. But his high spirits and the love of fun were the causes of these pranks. He always managed to save himself by frank confession, honorable atonement, or the irresistible power of persuasion which he possessed in perfection. In fact, he rather prided himself on his narrow escapes, and liked to thrill the girls with graphic accounts of his triumphs over wrathful tutors, dignified professors, and vanquished enemies. The men of my class were heroes of the eyes of the girls, who never wearied of the exploits of our fellows, and were frequently allowed to bask in the smiles of these great creatures when Laurie brought them home with him. Amy especially enjoyed the high honor I'm not. Your name's there, I see you. I especially enjoyed this high honor and became quite a belle, and for her ladyship early felt and learned to use the gift of fascination in which she was endowed. Meg was too much absorbed in her private and particular John to care for any other lords of creation, and Beth too shy to do more than peep at them and wonder how Amy dared to order them about. So, you can come to me. But Jo felt quiet in her own element, and found it very difficult to refrain from imitating the gentlemanly attitudes, phrases, and feats which seems more natural to her than the decorums prescribed for young ladies. They all liked Jo immensely, but never fell in love with her, though very few escaped without paying the tribute of sentimental high or two at Amy's shrine. And speaking of sentiment, brings us very naturally to the Alcott. That was the name of the little brown house Miss Brooke had prepared for Meg's first home. Laurie had christened it, saying it was highly appropriate to the gentle lovers who went on together like a pair of turtle doves. Ha! There he is, with first a bill and then a coo. It was a tiny house, with a little garden behind and a lawn about as big as a pocket handkerchief in the front. Here Meg meant to have a foundation shrubbery, and a profusion of lovely flowers, though just At present, the fountain was represented by a weather-beaten urn, very like a dilapidated slop bowl. The shrubbery consisted of several young larches. Undecided whether to live or die in the profusion of flowers, or merely hinted by regiments of sticks to show where seeds were planted. But inside it was altogether charming, and the happy bride saw no fault from garret to cellar. To be sure, the hall was so narrow it was fortunate that he had no piano, for one never could have been gotten whole. The dining room was so small that 6 people were a tight fit, and the kitchen stairs seemed built for the express purpose of precipitating both servants and china pell-mell into the coal pen. But once get used to these slight blemishes, and nothing could get more complete, for good sense and good taste had presided over the furnishing, and the result was highly satisfactory. Well, whoever that is, I would keep smiling. There were no marble-topped tables, long mirrors, or lace curtains in the little parlor, but simple furniture, plenty of books, a fine picture or two, a stand of flowers in the bay window. Get the fuck away from me, truly. And scattered all about, the pretty girls which came from friendly hands and were the fairer for the loving messages they brought. I don't think the Parian psyche, Lorry, gave lost any of its beauty because John put up the bracket it stood upon, than any upholsterer could have draped the plain muslin curtains more gracefully than Amy's artistic hand, or that any storeroom was ever better provided with good wishes, merry words, and happy hopes than that in which Jo had her mother put away Meg's few boxes, barrels, and bundles, and I am morally certain that the spandy new kitchen never could have looked so cozy and neat if Hannah had not arranged every pot and pan a dozen times over, and laid the fire all ready for the lighting the minute. I'll go ahead and speed ahead for me there. Mark. Miss Brooke came home. I also doubt if any young matron ever began life with so rich a supply of dusters, holders, and piece bags, from Beth made another to last till the silver wedding came round, and invented 3 different kinds of dishcloths for the express service of bridal china. The people who hire all these things done for them never know what they lose, for the homeliest tasks get beautified if loving hands do them, and Meg found so many proofs of this that everything in her small nest, from the kitchen roller to the silver vase on her parlor table, was eloquent of home, love, and tender forethought. What happy times they had planning together, what solemn shopping excursions, what funny mistakes they made, and what shouts of laughter arose over Laurie's ridiculous bargains. In his love of jokes, this young gentleman, though nearly through college, was as much of a boy as ever. His last whim had been to bring with him on his weekly visits some new useful and ingenious article for the young housekeeper. Now a bag of remarkable clothespins, next a wonderful nutmeg grater which fell to pieces at the first trial, a knife cleaner that spoiled all the knives, or a sweeper that picked the nap completely off the carpet that left the dirt, labor-saving soap that took the skin off one's hands, infallible cements which stuck firmly to nothing but the fingers of the deluder buyer, and every kind of tinware, from a toy-saving bank of odd pennies to a wonderful boiler with wood-wash articles in its own steam, with every prospect of exploding in the process.
Here's a bounty contract.
Powwow! In vain, Meg begged him to stop. John laughed at him, and Joe called him Mr. Toodles. He was possessed with a mania for patronizing Yankees, ingenuity, and seeing his friends fitly furnished forth. So each week beheld some fresh absurdity. Everything was done at last, even to Amy's arranging different colored soaps to match the different colored rooms, and best setting the table for the first meal. Are you satisfied? Does it seem like home, and do you feel as if you should be happy here? Asked Mrs. March, as she and her daughter went through the new kingdom arm in arm, for just when they seemed like clinging together more tenderly than ever. Yes, Mother, perfectly satisfied, thanks to you all. I'm so happy that I can't talk about it. With the looks, that was far better than words. If she only had a servant, sure, it would be all right, said Amy, coming out of the parlor, where she had been trying to decide whether the bronze Mercury looked best on the whatnot or the mantelpiece. Mother and I have talked that over, nay. tricks. No. This computer would not be her possession, nor would she have permission to do that. No. I cannot wait. Mother and I have talked that over, and I have made up my mind to try her way first. There will be so little to do, that with Lottie to run my errands and help me here and there, I shall only have enough to work to keep me from getting lazy or homesick. Entered Meg tranquilly. Sally Moffat has 4, began Amy. If Meg had 4, those houses wouldn't hold them, and Master and Mrs. would have to camp in the garden. Broken Joe, who enveloped in a big blue pinafore, was giving the last polish to the door handles. Sally isn't a poor man's wife, and many a maid are in keeping with her fine establishment. Meg and John begin humbly, but I have a feeling that there will be quite as much happiness in the little house as in the big one. It's a great mistake for young girls like Meg to have themselves nothing to do but dress, give orders, and gossip. When I was first married, I used to long for my new clothes to wear out or get torn. I'm the one that invented it, so you do you, buddy. So that I might have the pleasure of mending them, for I got heartily sick of doing fancy work containing my pocket handkerchief. Why didn't you go into the kitchen and make messes, as Sally says she does to amuse herself? Though they never turn out well and the servants laugh at her, said Meg. I did after a while, not to mess, but to learn of Hannah how things should be done, that my servants need not laugh at me. It was play then, but there came a time when I was truly grateful that not only possessed the will but the power to cook wholesome food for my little girls and help myself when I could no longer afford to hire help. You begin at the other end, Meg, dear, but the lessons you learn now will be the use of you by and by when John is a richer man, for the mistress of a house, however splendid, should know how work ought to be done if she wishes to be well and honesty served. Yes, Mother, I'm sure of that, said Meg, listening respectfully to the little lecture, for the best of woman will hold forth upon all absorbing subject of housekeeping. Do you know I like this room most of all my baby house? Added Meg a minute after as they went upstairs and she looked into her well-stored linen closet.
Eyes up. The sector's hot.
Bess, with fear, lay in the snowy piles, smoothly on the shelves, and exulting over the goodly array. All 3 laughed as Meg spoke, for the linen closet was a joke. You see, having said that, if Meg married that Brooke, she shouldn't have a cent of her money. Aunt March was rather in a quandary when time had appeased her wrath and made her spend her vow. She never broke her word, and with much exercise in her mind how to get round it, and at last devised a plan whereby she could satisfy herself. Mrs. Carroll, Florence's mamma, was ordered to have made and marked a general supply of house and table linen and send it as her present, all of which was faithfully done. But the secret leaked out and was greatly enjoyed by the family, for the Aunt March tried to look utterly unconscious and insisted that she could give nothing but the old-fashioned pearls long promised to the first bride. That's a housewifely taste which I am glad to see. I had a young friend who set up housekeeping with 6 sheets, but she had finger bowls for company, and that satisfied her, said Mrs. March, patting the damask tablecloths and the truly feminine appreciation of their fineness. I haven't a single finger bowl, but this is a stout that will last me all my days, Hannah says, and Meg looked quite contented as well as she might. Toodles is coming, cried Joe from below, and Hacker.
We lost track of the bounty charge. Contract failed.
Toodles is coming, cried Joe from below, and they all went down to meet Laurie, whose weekly visit was an important event in their quiet lives.
Squad mates in the gulag. If they survive,
A tall,
they
broad-shouldered young fellow with a cropped head, a felt basin of a hat, and a fly-away coat came tramping down the road at a great pace. Walked over the low fence without stopping, opened the gate straight up to Mrs. March. No, goddamn, you're annoying, with both hands out at a hearty. I cannot stress it enough that you're in trouble. Dumb bitch. You should not have done that. I mean what I say. Here I am, Mother. Yes, it's all right. The last words were in answer to the look elder lady gave him, a kindly questioning. Yeah, we hacking. Man, you just know no bounds, do you?
The squad mate is belly up. They're returning to base.
The last words were in answer to the look after the elder lady gave him. No. Non-believer. You do not have permission to do that. A kindly questioning look, which the handsome eyes met so frankly that the little ceremony closed, as usual, with a motherly kiss. For Mrs. John Brooke, with the maker's congratulations and compliments, bless you, Beth. What a refreshing spectacle you are, Joe. Amy, you are getting altogether too handsome for a single lady. As Laurie spoke, he delivered a brown paper parcel to Meg. Lady, I promise you I'm gonna burn you.
Reloading.
Pulled Beth's hair ribbon, stared at Joe's big pinafore, and fell into an attitude of mock rapture before Amy and took handles all round and everyone began to talk. Where's John? Asked Meg anxiously.
Got a buy station here.
Stop to get the license for tomorrow. Man, which side won the last match? Teddy inquired!
I mean, stop.
Joe! I'm not kidding.
You're
Who
finding a heater at
persisted
me right
in feeling an
now.
interest in manly sports despite her 19 years.
Gas is in.
I'm gonna burn you, I promise. Ours, of course, wish you'd been there to see all of you. How's the lovely Miss Randall? Asked Amy with a significant smile. More cruel than ever.
To the gulag.
Don't you see how I'm pinned away?
Deployment.
And Lord gave his broad chest a sounding slap and heaved a melodramatic sigh. What's the last joke? Under the bundle and see,
Ourselves a fight.
Meg, said Beth, crying the knobbly parcel with curiosity. It is a useful thing to have in the house in case of fire or thieves, observed Laurie as a watchman's rattle appeared amid the laughter of the girls.
Failure means elimination.
Any time when John is away and you get frightened, Mrs. Meg, just swing that out the front window and it will rouse the neighborhood in a jiffy. Nice thing, isn't it? And Laurie gave away a sample of its power that made them cover up their ears. There's gratitude for you. And speaking of gratitude, remind me to mention that you may thank Hannah for saving your wedding cake from destruction.
Back in the fight.
There she is. I saw it going into your house as I came by, and if she hadn't defended it manually, I'd have had a pick at it, for it looked like a remarkably plummy one. I wonder if you ever grow up, Laurie, said Meg in a matronly tone. I'm doing my best, ma'am, but can't get much higher, I'm afraid. 6 feet is about all men can do in these degenerate days, responded the young gentleman, whose head was about level with the little chandelier. I suppose it would be a profanation to eat anything in this spick and span bower. So, as I'm tremendously hungry, I propose an adjournment, he added presently. Mother and I are going to wait for John. There are some last things to settle, said Meg, bustling away. Beth and I are going over to Kitty Bryant's to get more flowers for tomorrow, added Amy, trying a picturesque hat over her picturesque curls and enjoying the effect as much as anybody.
That was close.
Come, Joe. Don't desert a fellow. I'm in such a state of exhaustion I can't get home without help. Don't take off your apron, whatever you do, it's peculiarly becoming, said Laurie as Joe bestowed a special aversion in her capacious pocket and offered her arm to support his feeble steps.
Yep.
Now, Teddy, I want to talk seriously to you about tomorrow, began Joe as they strolled away together. You must promise to behave well and not cut up any pranks and spoil our plans. Not a prank. You don't say funny things when we ought to be sober. I never do. You are the one for that. And I implore you not to look at me during the ceremony. I shall certainly laugh if you do. You won't see me. You'll be crying so hard that the thick fog round you will obscure the prospect. I never cried unless for some great affliction such as falls going to college. Hey, cut in Laurie's suggestive laugh. Don't be a peacock. I only moan the trifle to keep the girls company. Exactly. I say, Joe, how's Grandpa this week? Pretty enemy. Very. Why, have you gotten into a scrape and want to know how he'll take it? Asked Joe rather sharply. Now, Joe, do you think I'd look our mother in the face and say, all right, if it wasn't? And Louis stopped short with an injured air. No, I don't. Then don't go. Be suspicious. I only want some money, said Louis, walking on again, appeased by her hearty tongue. You spend a great deal, Teddy. Bless you, I don't spend it. It spends itself somehow and is gone before I know it. You are so generous and kind-hearted that you let people borrow and can't say no to anyone. We heard about Henshaw and all you did for him. If you always spent money in that way, no one would blame you, said Joe warmly. Oh, he made a mountain out of a molehill. You wouldn't have let that fine fellow work himself to death just for want of a little help. When he is worth a dozen of his lazy chaps, would you? Of course not. Not that I don't see the use of your having 17 waistcoats, endless neckties, and a new hat every time you come home. I thought you got over the dandy period, but every now and then it breaks out in a new spot. Just now it's the fashion to be hideous, to make your head look like a scrubbing brush, wear a straight jacket, orange gloves, and a clumping square-toed boots. If it was cheap ugliness, I'd say nothing, but it costs as much as the other, and I don't get any satisfaction out of it. Laurie threw back his head and laughed so heartily at this attack that the fell hat fell off, and Joe walked on it, which insult only afforded him an opportunity for expatiating on the advantages of a rough and ready costume. As he folded up the maltreated hat and stuffed it into his pocket, "Don't lecture any more, there's a good soul. I have enough all through the week and like to enjoy myself when I come home. I'll get myself up regardless of expense tomorrow and be a satisfaction to my friends." Dude. I'll leave you in peace if you only let your hair grow. I'm not aristocratic. But you object to being seen with a person who looks like your own prize fighter, observed Joe severely. The unassuming style promotes study, that's why we adopt it, returned Louis, who certainly could not be accused of vanity, having voluntarily sacrificed a handsome curly crop to the man for a quarter-inch-long stubble. By the way, Joe, I think that little Parker is really getting desperate about Amy. He talks of her constantly writing poetry and moves about in a most suspicious manner. He'd better nip his little passion in the bud, hadn't he? Added Laurie in a confidential, elder brotherly tone after a minute's silence. Of course he had. We don't want any more marrying in this family for years to come. Mercy on us, what are the children thinking of? And Joe looked at Mitch and scandalized that Amy and little Parker were not yet in their teens. It's a fast age, and I don't know what we are coming to, ma'am. You're a mere infant, but you go next. Joe, and we left in lamenting, said Laurie, shaking his head over the degeneracy of the times. Don't be alarmed, I'm not one of the agreeable sort. Nobody will want me, and it's a mercy, for there should always be one old maid in a family. You won't give anyone a chance, said Laurie with a sidelong glance, and a little more color than before its sunborn face. You know, you won't show the soft side of your character, and if a fellow gets a peep at it by accident and can't help showing that he likes it, you treat me as a Mrs. Gummidge did her sweetheart, throw cold water over him, and get so thorny that no one dares touch or look at you. I don't like that sort of thing. I'm too busy to be worried with nonsense, and I think it's dreadful to break up families so. Spiteful little fucking cunt. And don't say any more mirror to it. It's annoying. You're not arguing with me. Meg's wedding has turned all our heads, and we talk of nothing but lovers and such absurdities. I don't wish to get cross, and let's change the subject. And Joe looked quite ready to fling cold water on the slightest provocation. Whatever his feelings might have been, Laurie found a vent for them in long, low whistle and a fearful prediction as they guarded at the gate. Mark my words, Joe, you'll go next. I'll just keep rolling on this. Chapter 25, the first wedding. The mentality there. You really should not have done that. You should see what's going on in my head. Second more, I'm 100% positive that you have a Harley Davidson running underground here. Alright, chapter 25, the first wedding.
What was that?
The June roses over the porch. Well, it's about to end.
The grip.
The June roses over the porch were awake bright and early in that morning. That's annoying. America, I can't wait. Earth, I can't wait. My heart. No, 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 cell tower. My heart says to kill you. My head in the sky is telling you to run up on you and put you on the ground. That is what it is telling me to do. You're lucky I have not done it. Oh, there he goes on my camera. I can see you. How now, ladies? Alright, happy 4th of July, first of all. As we creep into the perfect timing, the 3rd here, we have 24 hours. How does that work? I didn't even look at that, to be honest with you. I saw the date and I didn't look at the time, but now that I did, I'm glad that I did. 12:07. It's a little creepy, to be honest. Watch out, girls. Alright, so we're at chapter 25 of Little Women. The first wedding. The June roses over the porch were awake bright and early in the morning, rejoicing with all their hearts in the clouds of sunshine like friendly little neighbors, as it were. Quite flushed with excitement were their ruddy faces as they swung in the wind, whispering to one another what they had seen. For some peeped in at the dinner room windows where the feast was spread. Some climbed up to nod and smile at the sisters as they dressed the bride. Others waved a welcome to those who came and went on various errands in garden, porch, and hall, and all, from the rosiest full-blown flower to the palest baby bud, offered their tribute of beauty and fragrance to the gentle mistress who had loved and tended them so long. Meg looked very like a rose herself, for all that was best and sweetest in heart and soul seemed to bloom into her face that day, making it fair and tender, with a charm more beautiful than beauty. Neither silk lace nor orange flowers would she have. I don't want a fashionable wedding, but only those about me whom I love and to whom I wish to look and be familiar so. So she made a wedding gown herself, sewing into it the tender hopes and innocent romances of a girlish heart. Her sisters braided up her pretty hair, and the only ornaments she wore were the lilies of the valley, which her John liked the best of all the flowers and grew. You do look just like our own dear, Meg, only so very sweet and lovely that I should hug you if it wouldn't crumple your dress, cried Amy, surveying her with delight when all was done. Then I am satisfied, but please hug and kiss me, everyone, and don't mind my dress. I want a great many crumples of this sort put into it today. And Meg opened up her arms to her sisters, who clung about her with April faces for a minute, feeling that the new love had not changed the old. Now I'm going to tie John's cravat for him, and then to stay a few minutes with Father quietly in his study. And Meg ran down to perform those little ceremonies, and then to follow her mother wherever she went, conscious that, in spite of the smiles on the motherly face, there was a secret sorrow hidden in the motherly heart at the flight of the first bird from the nest. As the young girls stand together, giving the last touches to the simple toilet, it may be a good time to tell a few changes which 3 years have wrought in their appearance, for all are looking their best just now. Jill's ankles are much softened. She has learned to carry herself with ease, if not grace. The curly crop has lengthened to a thick coil, more becoming to the small head atop of the tall figure. There's a fresh color in her brown cheeks, the soft shine in her eyes, and only gentle words fall from her sharp tongue today. Beth has grown slender, pale, and more quiet than ever. The beautiful, kind eyes are larger, and in them lies an expression that saddens one, although it is not sad itself. It is the shadow of pain which touches a young face with such pathetic patience. But Beth seldom complains and always speaks hopefully of being better soon. Amy is what the truth is considered the flower of the family. For at 16 she has the air and bearing of a full-grown woman. Not beautiful, but possessed of that indescribable charm called grace. One saw it in the lines of her figure, the make and motion of her hands, the flow of her dress, the droop of her hair, unconscious yet harmonious, and as attractive to many as beauty itself. Amy's nose still afflicted her, for it never would grow Grecian, so did her mouth, being too wide and having a decided chin. These offended features gave character to her whole face, but she never could see it, and consoled herself with her wonderfully fair complexion, keen blue eyes, and curls more golden and abundant than ever. All three wore suits of thin silver gray, their best gowns for the summer, with blush roses in hair and bosom, and all three looked just what they were, fresh-faced, happy-hearted girls, pausing a moment in their busy lives to read with wistful eyes the sweetest chapter in the romance of womanhood.
Move to the next one.
There were to be no ceremonious performances. Everything was to be as natural and homelike as possible. So when Aunt March arrived, she was scandalized to see the bride come running to welcome and lead her in, to find the bridegroom fastening up a garland that had fallen down, and to catch a glimpse of the paternal minister marching upstairs with a grave countenance and a wine bottle under each arm. "Upon my word, here's a state of things," cried the old lady, taking the seat of honor prepared for her, and settled the folds of her lavender moire with a great rustle. "You aren't to be seen till the last minute, child. I'm not the show, auntie, and no one has come to stare at me, to criticize my dress or count the cost of my luncheon. I'm too happy to care what anyone says or thinks, and I'm going to have my little wedding just like I like it.
Contract complete.
John, dear, here's your hammer." And away went Meg to help that man in his highly improper employment. Mr. Brooke didn't even say thank you, but as he stooped for the unromantic tool, he kissed his little bride behind the folding door with a look that made Aunt March whisk out her pocket handkerchief with a sudden dew in her sharp old eyes. A crash, a cry, and a laugh from Laurie, accompanied by the indecorous exclamation, "Jupiter Ammon! Joseph set the cake again," caused a momentary flurry, which was hardly over when a flock of cousins arrived, and the party came in, as Beth used to say when a child. "Don't let that young giant come near me. He worries me worse than mosquitoes," whispered the old lady Amy as the room was filled with Laurie's black head toward above the rest. "He has promised to be very good today, and he can be perfectly elegant if he likes," returned Amy, and gliding away to warn Hercules to beware of the dragon, which warning caused him to haunt the old lady with a devotion that nearly distracted her. There was no bridal procession, but a sudden silence fell upon the room as Mr. March and the young couple took their place under the green arch. Mother and sisters gathered close as if loath to give Meg up. The fatherly voice broke more than once, which only seemed to make the surface more beautiful and solemn. The bridegroom's hand trembled visibly, and no one heard his replies. But Meg looked straight up in her husband's eyes and said, "I will," with such tender trust in her own face and voice that her mother's heart rejoiced, and Aunt March sniffed audibly.
Are in the safe zone.
Joe did not cry, though she was very near it once, and was only saved from a demonstration by the consciousness that Laurie was staring fixedly at her, with a comical mixture of merriment and emotion in his wicked black eyes. Beth kept her face hidden on her mother's shoulder, but Amy stood like a graceful statue with the most becoming ray of sunshine, touching her white forehead and the flower in her hair. It wasn't at all the thing, I'm afraid, but the minute she was fairly married, Meg cried, "The first kiss for Marmee," and turning, gave it with her heart on her lips. During the next 15 minutes, she looked more like a rose than ever, for everyone availed themselves of the privileges to the fullest extent, from Mr. Lawrence to old Hannah, who, adorned with a headdress fearfully and wonderfully made, fell upon her in the hall, crying with a sob and a chuckle, "Bless you, dearie, 100 times. The cake ate a mite, and everything looked lovely." Everybody cleared up after that and said something brilliant, or tried to, which did just as well, for laughter is ready when hearts are light. There was no display of gifts, for they were already in the little house, nor was there any elaborate breakfast, but a plentiful lunch of cake and fruit, dressed with flowers. Mr. Lawrence and Aunt March shrugged and smiled at one another when water, lemonade, and coffee were found to be only sorts of nectar, which the 3 heaves carried round. No one said anything, till Laurie, who insisted on serving the bride, appeared before her, with a loaded salver in his hand and a puzzled expression on his face. "Has Joe smashed all the bottles by accident?" he whispered. "Or am I merely laboring under a delusion that I saw some line about loose this morning?" "No. Your grandfather kindly offered his best, and Aunt March actually sent some, but Father put away a little for Beth, and dispatched the rest to soldiers home. You know he thinks that wine should be used only in illness, and Mother says that neither she nor her daughters will ever offer it to any young men under her roof." Meg spoke seriously and expected to see Laurie frown or laugh, but he did neither, for after a quick look at her, she said in his impetuous way, "I like that, for I've seen enough harm done to which other women wouldn't think as you do. You're not made wise by experience, I hope." And there was an anxious accent in Meg's voice. "No, I give you my word for it. Don't think too well of me, either. This is not one of my temptations. Being brought up where wine is common as water and almost harmless, I don't care for it. But when a pretty girl offers it and one doesn't like to refuse, you see. But you will, for the sake of others. It's not for your own. Come, Laurie, promise, and give me one more reason to call this the happiest day of my life." A demand so sudden and so serious made the young man hesitate a moment, for ridicule is often harder to bear than self-denial. Meg knew that if he gave the promise he would keep it at all costs, and feeling her power, used it as a woman may for her friend's good. She did not speak, but she looked up at him with a face made very eloquent by happiness, and a smile which said, "No one can refuse me anything today." Laurie certainly could not, and with an answering smile he gave her his hand, saying heartily, "I promise, Mrs. Brooke." "I thank you very, very much. And I drink long life to your resolution, Teddy," cried Joe, bagpiping him with a splash of lemonade, as she waved her glass and beamed approvingly upon him. So the toast was drunk, the pledge made, and loyally kept in spite of many temptations, for with instinctive wisdom the girl seized a happy moment to do their friend a service, for which he thanked them all his life. After lunch, people strolled about by 2s and 3s, through the house and garden, enjoying the sunshine without and within. Meg and John happened to be standing together in the middle of the grass plot, when Laurie was seized with an inspiration which put the finishing touch to his unfashionable wedding. All the married people take hands and dance around the new-made husband and wife, as Germans do, while we bachelors and spinsters prance in couples outside, cried Laurie, promenading down the path with Amy with such infectious spirit and skill that everyone else followed their example without a murmur. Mr. and Mrs. March, Aunt and Uncle Carroll began it. Others rapidly joined in. Even Sally Moffat, after a moment's hesitation, threw her train over her arm and whisked Ned into the ring, with crowning joke with Mr. Lawrence and Aunt March. For when the stately old gentleman chanced solemnly up to the old lady, She just tucked her cane under her arm and hopped briskly away to join hands with the rest and dance about the bridal pair, while the young folks pervaded the garden like butterflies on a midsummer day. Once a breath brought the impromptu ball to a close, and then people began to go. "I wish you well, my dear, I heartily wish you well, but I think you'll be sorry for it," said Aunt March to Meg, adding to the bridegroom as he led her to the carriage. "You've got a treasure, young man, so you deserve it. This is the prettiest wedding I've been to for an age, Ned, and I don't see why, for there wasn't a bit of style about it," observed Mrs. Moffat to her husband as they drove away. "Laurie, my lad, if you ever want to indulge in this sort of thing, get one of those little girls to help you, and I shall be perfectly satisfied," said Mr. Lawrence, settling himself in his easy chair to rest after the excitement of the morning. "I'll do my best to gratify you, sir," was Laurie's unusually dutiful reply as he carefully unpinned the posy Joe had put in his buttonhole.
Losing ground. Move it.
The little house was not far away, and the only bridal journey Meg had was a quiet walk with John from the old home to the new. When she came down, looking like pretty Quakers in her dove-colored suit and straw bonnet tied with white, they all gathered about her to say goodbye, as tenderly as if she had been going to make the grand tour. "Don't feel that I am separated from you, Marmee, dear, or that I love you any less for loving John so much," she said, clinging to her mother with full eyes for a moment. "I shall come every day, Father, and expect to keep my old place in all your hearts, though I am married. Bess is going to be with me a great deal, and the other girls will drop in now and then to laugh at my housekeeping struggles. Thank you all for my happy wedding day. Goodbye, goodbye." They stood watching her with faces full of love and hope and tender pride as she walked away, leaning on her husband's arm with her hands full of flowers, and the June sunshine brightening her happy face.
Hostile UAV.
And so Meg's married life began.